What happens when the world's most powerful air force has received no new strategic bomber in more than 25 years, yet faces accelerating competition from China? The United States currently operates just 18 stealth-capable B-2 bombers, aircraft designed in the 1980s, while Beijing tests what appears to be its first intercontinental-range stealth bomber. This video examines how the B-21 Raider program could redefine long-range strike power and what is at stake if production fails to accelerate. If the B-21 scales up successfully, Washington strengthens its ability to penetrate advanced air defenses across the Indo-Pacific and Middle East. If it stalls, the United States risks a capability gap at a time when China is expanding stealth aviation and Russia continues limited production of legacy bombers. Strategic bombers are not symbolic assets. They underpin nuclear deterrence, conventional deep strike, and alliance credibility from Europe to East Asia. The United States Air Force has not fielded a new strategic bomber since the B-2 Spirit entered service in the 1990s. Only 21 B-2s were built, and 18 remain operational. Their low availability rates and aging stealth coatings reflect technology conceived during the late Cold War. Maintenance hours per flight hour have historically been high, and operational costs limited fleet expansion. That experience shaped the design philosophy behind the B-21 Raider, built by Northrop Grumman to be smaller, more maintainable, and more scalable than its predecessor. The B-21 first flew in November 2023 and entered low-rate initial production structured into 5 lots totaling 21 aircraft. The Air Force has committed to at least 100 units, yet multiple defense analyses argue that 100 would cover only limited strike waves in a high-end conflict. A study from the Mitchell Institute in early 2025 assessed that a force of that size could execute isolated penetrations but not sustain a prolonged campaign against a peer adversary. It concluded that closer to 300 aircraft would be required for continuous operations across multiple theaters. Northrop Grumman's chief executive, Kathy Warden, recently indicated that the program is transitioning towards serial production. The company plans to invest between $2 and $3 billion to expand capacity, while Congress approved $4.5 billion in July 2025 to support scaling. The fiscal year 2026 budget request for the program reached $10.3 billion. The production facility in Palmdale, California, has been assessed as capable of accommodating expanded output for pre-production variants. These figures reflect more than procurement arithmetic. The United States faces simultaneous strategic pressures: tension with Iran requiring long-range strike endurance, persistent deterrence missions over the Korean Peninsula, and rising competition with China in the Western Pacific. The small B-2 fleet has been maintained at unusually high readiness rates during periods of tension, but sustaining repeated strike cycles stresses a limited inventory. China's trajectory adds urgency. Satellite imagery in mid-2025 revealed what analysts assessed as an intercontinental-range stealth bomber under development. By October 19th, images emerged showing the aircraft in flight. Observers noted twin internal weapons bays and a wingspan comparable to the B-2. Unlike the manned B-21, this Chinese platform appears unmanned, suggesting a doctrinal emphasis on risk, tolerance, and endurance. Advances demonstrated by programs such as the GJ-11 unmanned combat aircraft and the J-20A fighter indicate progress in radar-evading design, composites, and sensor integration. The new bomber is expected to support strike, reconnaissance, and communications relay missions for far-sea operations. Russia, meanwhile, continues limited production of the Tu-160, but its next-generation bomber project has lagged. Globally, only Russia and China currently produce bombers in series, and neither has fielded a fully operational next-generation stealth intercontinental platform comparable to what Washington intends with the B-21. That gap, however, may narrow if Chinese testing transitions into deployment within the next decade. What if the Air Force proceeds with only 100 B-21s? In a high-intensity conflict against a peer adversary equipped with layered air defenses and long-range missiles, sortie generation rates would determine campaign tempo. A fleet of 100, factoring maintenance cycles and training commitments, could yield far fewer mission-ready aircraft at any given moment. Sustained operations across the Indo-Pacific, Europe, and the Middle East simultaneously would strain capacity, potentially forcing prioritization between theaters. Consider a second scenario. What if production accelerates toward 200 or even 300 aircraft? Economies of scale could reduce unit costs over time, and distributed basing concepts could complicate adversary targeting. A larger fleet would also reinforce nuclear deterrence credibility as aging B-52Hs approach the limits of modernization feasibility. The B-52J upgrade program has faced cost growth and schedule delays, raising questions about how many aircraft will ultimately be modernized. A reduced B-52 inventory would increase reliance on the B-21 for both conventional and strategic roles. The B-21 is expected to enter service in the early 2030s after facing development delays. Its smaller size compared to the B-2 is intended to control procurement and operational expenses, lessons drawn from the Spirit program's overruns. Designers prioritized maintainability, digital engineering, and open architecture systems to enable upgrades over decades. The objective is not merely stealth, but adaptability in an era of rapidly evolving sensors and counter-stealth technologies. Geopolitically, bomber forces signal resolve. Long-range aircraft can deploy globally within hours, reassuring allies or deterring adversaries without permanent basing changes. In the Indo-Pacific, where distance defines strategy, intercontinental reach shapes alliance calculations in Japan, South Korea, and Australia. In the Middle East, the ability to sustain deep strikes without regional basing constraints influences crisis dynamics. If the United States fields a robust B-21 fleet, it strengthens extended deterrence commitments. If it falters, partners may reassess risk exposure. China's unmanned approach could also shift norms. An intercontinental stealth drone reduces pilot risk and may permit longer loiter times, potentially integrating with anti-access strategies across the South China Sea. Should Beijing operationalize such a platform before the B-21 reaches full-rate production, perceptions of momentum could influence regional power balances. Ultimately, this competition centers on industrial capacity as much as aerodynamics. Expanding production requires stable budgets, supplier resilience, and political consensus. The B-21 program's trajectory will reveal whether the United States can translate strategic intent into sustained output.